Welcome back. Let's head over to New Jersey now, where the Senate race may not be as much of a foregone conclusion as we originally thought. Democrat Cory Booker, obviously the mayor of Newark, and Republican Steve Lonegan, they're running in the special election to replace the late Frank Lautenberg, who passed away in June. Now, most had considered this thing a done deal, but not so fast. It looks like things are tightening, at least somewhat. New polls out, Rutgers Eagleton, who released 2 weeks ago, and it showed that Booker, he had a 35-point lead, but a Q poll that came out today shows Booker's ahead, but by only 12 points now. Meanwhile, Lonegan's out with a new radio spot that paints Booker as nothing more than a corrupt hack.
Booker blew the $100 million from Mark Zuckerberg on pollsters, focus groups, and consultants, while Newark schools continue to fail. Cory Booker's Newark, skyrocketing taxes, murder and violent crime out of control, expensive failing schools, and 14% unemployment. Don't let Booker do to America what Booker's already done to Newark.
Now, Andrew, the fact checkers have had some field day with this in terms of the $100 million from Zuckerberg, that he's pocketed all the money. I think people would notice if $100 million disappeared, but anyway. But whatever he's doing, Steve Lonegan's tightened this thing up, and he's obviously saying you want the mayor of a Wild West city like Newark here in charge of...
Slow down. First of all, it was always going to tighten up. These things always do tighten up. The New York City mayoral race, which was something like 70-20 at the last check, is going to tighten up. We're about 3 weeks before Election Day. You're starting to get a little closer to where the party IDs are for the entire state. I can't say it's a done deal because nobody's voted yet, but it's about as close to a done deal as a done deal can be.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I've been warning you guys all along that this guy, Cory Booker, is not all that he's selling, and we're seeing newspaper stories indicating that he's a total phony. Just look at the city of Newark, New Jersey.
Okay, but let's also look at it.
Gail,
time out. But let's also
look
you and your Gail King. I don't know what's going on there, Dominic. But the thing is,
the city of Newark.
The thing is that Steve Lonegan ain't exactly some prize.
I agree with you on
all
that
candidates are more and less than what they're selling. I'd like to know if Lonegan is running positive ads about what he'd like to do if he's elected.
Well, he also had the racist cartoons, remember that?
And also, I think Cory Booker gets a pass on the state of Newark. I think most New Jersey residents are like, Newark was garbage before Booker became the mayor. It's kind of garbage now. It's a little better than it was.
Could you and Richard tell me, I was in Newark about 2 weeks ago, and I'm not going to, I wanted to cry the moment I hit the city borders. Looking at people of color. There have
been some improvements.
Like what?
Well, downtown. I mean, there's been a lot of...
That's all Sharp James. He brought in the minor league baseball team. He was the one that started cleaning up downtown. Cory Booker is a salesman.
Things are bad if you're going to Sharp James here as the savior.
Okay.
All right. I got a question for you, Congressman, because 14 months we are from the midterm elections, and New York's Hudson Valley could be home to the hottest, closest, and probably most expensive congressional races in the country, where a lot of outside money will be flowing in. In the 19th congressional district, Sean Eldridge has announced through this web ad that he will seek the Democratic nomination. If you never heard of him, he's got an interesting backstory. He is the head of Hudson River Ventures. It's a business investment fund. And he is the husband of Facebook co-founder Chris Hughes. And he's challenging the two-term incumbent Chris Gibson, seen here on the House floor speaking in favor of easing concealed carry gun laws. So there certainly is more than a little daylight between the two of them politically. And a little further south, to a district you know very well, former Congressman Nan Hayworth. She has filed paperwork with the FEC, and a spokesman says that she is, quote, actively considering another run in the 18th district. She's running, okay? And that would potentially set up a rematch in the 18th against the current Democratic Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney, who won the seat by just under 11,000 votes. And my question is, in seats like this, and obviously one you know very well, that are by definition, the way they're drawn up, toss-up seats, it seems that it's got to be extremely hard to be an incumbent or even the challenger, because whatever you are, you have to be mitigating on a razor's edge here, because you can't go too far one way or the other. And I'll look at Nan Hayworth. When she ran, she was a proud Tea Partier. 2 years later, if you said the word within an area code from her, she'd sprint. Now, you know, when I talk to her, she gets contorted on it. And Sean Patrick Maloney, I mean, the guy's having to do chicken dinner 7 days a week here and raising money every day because of these districts. What's it like to run and then be elected in a seat that seems to be in perpetual campaign mode?
It's a lot easier to be on the road playing music, I can say that. I would say, first of all, that if I were Sean Patrick Maloney, I would remind people as many times as possible that Congresswoman Hayworth told them in advance that she was not going to bring any federal dollars home because she wanted to not have earmarks and to stop using the congressional authority to control finances to benefit her constituents. That, to me, is a gift of constitutional power to the executive branch that Congress should not do. I tried arguing that, it didn't catch on. Maybe it will this time. Maybe if people want to see roads and bridges fixed and water treatment plants and things like that, that hire people to do the work to make our life better in this district. In terms of, now I no longer live in my old district, you may not know, but the redistricting cut Dover Plains, my hometown, off from the old 19th, which is now the 18th, and put me in the new 19th, which is the Chris Gibson represented upstate district, which I know a lot less well than the 5 counties I traveled to for 4 years.
But is it, I mean, I've always said, love him or hate him, one thing about Christie is that to a voter he's authentic. And even people who don't agree with his politics, there's a thirst for this out there right now. Is there a time when you're an incumbent where you say, you know what, instead of trying to please everybody so I don't offend anybody, and you are better than most at it, I'm not just saying that because you're here, but is it almost better, looking now from the outside, to say, hey, whether it's Sean Patrick Maloney or whether it's whoever you are, be who you are. You're going to offend somebody anyway. But at least that way, people believe that what you say you are. There's such a distaste for the public right now because there's a parsing of the words, and then depending on how the political winds change, they may or may not support something. It's especially acute in districts like the one you used to serve in.
I think by their votes, they do say who they are. And the fact that Congressman Gibson, for instance, voted to defund the Affordable Care Act is voting with the Tea Party and voting against, I think, the majority of his district, which is majority Democratic registration now that Woodstock, Kingston, New Paltz, Saugerties, et cetera, some of these Hudson Valley towns are now part of his district that he was not originally
Do you think
elected
lawmakers, it's easier to be a good lawmaker if you're not in one of these swing seats because then you do more of the legislating rather than the campaigning all the time?
Well, yeah, there's good news and bad news about that. The districts that are not swing districts tend to go further to the extremes. And that's where you get, somebody who's safe no matter what they do on the Democratic or the Republican side. And that is part of what's creating the divide in this country that makes for gridlock. So the swing districts are important because that's where the discussion really happens, and the people can decide from one year to another that they're going to swing the ball a little bit this way or a little bit that way.
Dominic, there's a city story that may become much bigger. I want to get your take on it. The former CEO of the Metropolitan Council on Jewish Poverty was arrested today and has been charged with stealing from that charity. William Rapvogel and others accused of stealing $5 million over a 20-year period. New York State Attorney General says that Rapvogel directed a co-conspirator in an insurance company to use the money pocketed from the scam to make political donations to candidates and political groups for the charity. Now, it should be noted, Rapvogel's wife is the chief of staff to New York State Assembly Speaker Shelley Silver. No official made any connection between the donations and Silver's office. But Dominic, we already know people who are saying people are already trying to work to connect the dots here, and this thing is not going to start and end with Mr. Rapvogel.
Full disclosure, I know him well, know his wife well. They got a major problem here. And Speaker Silver, this goes all the way to Albany, has a major problem with this one. It starts with Speaker Silver, and there's no allegation of wrongdoing on his part. He takes earmark money, pork money and so on, from the state budget and puts it to a worthy cause.
Yep.
The organization that Mr. Rapvogel heads. They do excellent work in the tri-state area. Housing, so on, getting people to work. It's alleged $5 million are missing. $5 million.
That it came off the top. Right.
And so Mr. Rapvogel turned over $400,000 when he turned himself in this morning and was handcuffed and arrested. But here's the problem, Richard. The same thing that happened with John Liu, where 2 of his campaign people were convicted and were sent to jail. We're looking at a situation where they took the kickback money, and Mr. Rapfogel, who's almost like an ambassador for the city of New York, made donations to many different politicians and made sure that the donations were small.
Somebody explained it once, John.
So you
if
get
you
the
agree,
matching
it's like a
funds.
virus where this thing
Right.
doesn't stay at the charity. Now it goes to the campaigns, and they're infected by it too, and it keeps mutating from there.
Because let's say you take $100 of bad money and you give it to a campaign, that's now matched with a $600 taxpayer donation. This is a huge mess. There are allegations of affairs. It's a huge mess.
And it doesn't have to get all the way directly to Silver for it to be a problem for Silver.
And
It
they're
can just get in the
whistleblowers.
same general
2
area.
whistleblowers.
When we come back, we will switch gears. We're going to get away from politics for a minute. And I've had questions about the changing music industry, and I got a terrific guest here who can speak to it. Now, before John Hall was a congressman, he was, as many of you know, a very successful musician. He's going to sound off on how much things have changed then and now, if it's better back then than it is today. Not just the music, but the business of it too. Stay with us.